I would like really to know the young people and everywhere, everyone, what happened.
De hihetetlen, hogy az ember miken ment keresztül, és mégis tud élni tovább.
Between the 28th and the 29th of September 1942, 33,771 people were shot.
It hurts. It hurts that people do something like that to other people.
What have you said today that could be offensive? Have you dehumanized someone? We really want to investigate this. We want to understand how the Holocaust happened, what messages we can learn from it, and how it relates to us today. That's what we want to learn. How it relates to you today, directly to you, everyone watching this. What messages can you learn from this?
After spending some time in Krakow, we set out to learn more about the Holocaust. So we drove to Warsaw to visit the site of the former Warsaw Ghetto, where 450,000 people were imprisoned against their will.
You know, the Nazis didn't just herd people into gas chambers. They didn't just shoot people in forests. They humiliated them and they broke their spirits. In the ghettos, they cut the beards off religious Jewish people. They made people dance by shooting at their feet. They starved people. They didn't provide any form of sanitation, any form of healthcare.
To really understand the impact of prejudice on those who experience it, we knew we had to speak to survivors of the Holocaust, so we spoke to Mrs. Naftali from Targamurej.
Én azelőtt készítettem egy kis gyógyszercsomagot. Azelőtt, mert tudtuk, hogy le lesz. 2 napig nem volt szabad kimenni a házból azelőtt. Tehát készítettem egy gyógyszercsomagot, hogy vigyem. Mikor éppen be akartam tenni a hátizsákba, mert a zsákba vittük, akkor észrevette a csendőr. És azt kérdezte, mit tesz be, amit nem szabad? Mit csempész be? Azt mondtam, semmit, tessék, gyógyszer. Azt nem szabad. Erre én fogtam és letettem, leültem, karba tettem a kezemet, és azt mondtam, édesanyám, ülj le te is, nem csomagolunk, mi nem viszünk semmit, így megyünk. Mert ahova nem szabad ezt a kis gyógyszert vinni, ott nem is lesz szükségünk rá, semmire, erre a holmira, amit ők megengednek. Mikor kimentünk, mielőtt kimentünk, édesanyámmal megfogtuk egymás kezét, visszanéztünk, és arra azt mondtuk, vajon mikor fogunk még itt lenni.
After hearing from Mrs. Naftali about her experiences of the ghettos, we had to see how her family and families like hers were transported to the camps.
We were put in a wagon of coos, or I don't know what they transported there. And very many people, you know, so they have no place to sit or something. And it took around 4 days in such. They stopped the wagons once and they opened them, and somebody was allowed to go down and take some water. But they wanted to escape, but they was caught and again. And many people died inside, you know. It was awful.
És nem értettem akkor meg, hogy egy olyan, aki már 2 éve egy lengyel ott volt a lágerbe, hozott nekem egy kicsi darab céklát. És azt mondta, hogy dörzsöljem evel az arcom. Hát én nem tudtam, hogy ez miért mondja. Aztán később rájöttem, hogy miért mondta. Külön nem láttam, és mikor Mengele elé kerültem, akkor vettem észre, hogy a sápad betegeket küldi egyfelé, az öregeket egyfelé, a gyerekeket egyfelé, és a dolgozni tudókat küldte a másik oldalra. És én oda kerültem még akkor.
A 13-year-old boy called David arrived at Auschwitz-Birkenau with his mum. When they got off the trains, the men and women were split into 2 separate lines. And because David was still young, he was allowed to stand with his mum. His mum quickly realised she wasn't strong enough for work, and that something bad was probably going to happen to her. And if David stayed with her, then something bad would happen to him too. So David's mum made the agonising decision to send David away from her. So she started to shout to him, "David, go away! Go to the men's line, David, go on, go away!" And David couldn't understand why. So the last thing he ever said to his mum was, "Mum, why do you hate me?"
And you just think that is the last thing he ever said to her. Here.
After being burned in the ovens of Auschwitz-Birkenau, this is where the ashes of David's mother would have been just dumped.
We're now following the path of those not necessarily chosen to live, but those chosen not to die immediately. We're going to be going to the sauna, which is where they had their bodies shaved, they were tattooed, they were given their numbers.
Aztán következett, ahogy hívtak egy bódi elé, és azt mondták, von heute angefangen du hast keine Name. Mától kezdve nincsen neved, mától kezdve te egy szám vagy. Először voltam B419, de elhibázták, és akkor krikszkráksz jöttek, és kijavították, és lett A20419.
And that story is just as important as the gas chambers, because then again, we have dehumanization, the practicalities of dehumanization. How do you dehumanize someone? You shave them, you make them wear the uniform, you tattoo them, you take away a name, you give them a number.
As there were lots of tourists visiting Auschwitz-Birkenau the day that we visited, we wanted to speak to someone else to see how they were feeling.
I was very overwhelmed. And I still, sorry?
Come here, Alex.
It's very, very, it hurts. It hurts that people can do something like that to other people.
Absolutely.
And it will never happen again, that nobody will have to go through those feelings. I know it's hard for people to understand if they've never experienced it, and I've never experienced it, but I have experienced some racial tension amongst other people, and I just have more appreciation for all that history that went through. And yes, you know, it's hard not to cry and not to get emotional. And that was the hard part for me. In fact, when we were going through our group, I had to step aside and take a moment because tears were just flowing. It's so bad for all the people that go through such heartache and loss.
In 3-4 days, we were transformed from human beings in miserable animals.
Were you surprised at what human beings can do to others?
Yes, very surprised. What the perpetrators can and what the satisfaction they have. I tell you a scene. At the well, and a father go to a child to give a little water, and a guard shot him.
The father.
He shot him. He shot, and he remained died. And his wife asked him, "Why did you shot him?" And the answer was, "I want to see how is dying a Jew." For me, for my remembering, it's I want and I can't forget.
Yeah.
I want to forgive. You understand?
Yeah,
Forget, and I can't.
After hearing the stories of Holocaust survivors, we felt that we had to see the conditions they were kept in, so we visited Majdanek, a former death camp where the prisoners were kept in horrendous conditions.
It feels so claustrophobic.
Yeah, imagine sleeping. I mean, you say sleeping, I mean, did any of these people actually sleep the way we sleep? Do they dream? Do they have restful sleeps? I don't know. But imagine sleeping here, at the bottom, and you have 2 layers of people on top of you. And what happens if I mean, remember the conditions in these places. This was not a holiday camp. It's not Butlins. These were concentration camps. There was disease. There was death, starvation.
These places are almost mythological. It's hard to imagine a gas chamber really being used to kill people. But in this room, innocent people were gassed to death.
It's very strange, but you almost want to go and touch it. And that sounds really revolting for people maybe watching this, but it's so sad. These people have been reduced to a mound of ash. There's no names, there's no identity, there's no comfort. Think about the fear, the terror that went on here, and no one's comforting them. No one is comforting these souls. They're just left by themselves. People come and look, we're detached, we look onto them. You want to go and make a connection and touch it and kind of, I don't know if I believe in souls or if anyone, I don't know if people have souls, but you kind of, if they do, you want to go and put them at rest. You don't want to have them just here in this mountain. And yeah, it's an amazing memorial, and it is an amazing memorial, but they're just left, and there's no warmth, there's no comfort, think of all the children that cried, all the parents, all the tears, the hysteria, the devastation, and think about how they weren't comforted, they haven't been absolved, or whatever, I don't know, it's just, you feel guilty for all of the things that we have, and the fact that these people were brought here and no one is taking care of them. They're just left, and we're going to leave and go home and go for lunch or go for dinner and write a blog post about what we've done, and it just seems so empty.
By this point into our journey, we felt that to really learn from the Holocaust, we had to try and understand the ones that were committing the crimes. So we visited Belzec's death camp to talk about the perpetrators.
We have to ask ourselves how grown men not only allowed this to happen, but made this happen. Reinhard Heydrich, Odilo Globoknik, Heinrich Himmler, Adolf Hitler. We may look at them as evil historical figures, as monsters. They were people. Irma Grace, 22 years old, she was hanged by the Allies. Why? For crimes against humanity, whilst being a commandant at Bergen-Belsen concentration camp in Germany. She used to beat prisoners with whips. She used to set her half-starved, trained dogs on prisoners. She was 22 years old. When she was a young girl, she wanted to be a nurse. Why did she change from wanting to be a nurse to sending people to gas chambers? The antithesis of what she wanted to do as a child. We must understand, we must know the criminals, the perpetrators' names. They're not a massive evil. They were people just like the victims.
German soldiers that were killing Jews in the fields of Ukraine or Poland, they were also writing letters to their families saying, "My dear wife, I miss you, I love you, how's my son?" They were sending photographs, they were receiving packages, they were able to love. So this is what we want to show, that this is we are the same people, and this is so important. This is why we should, because this is the lesson for us, what we are capable of.
After Belzec, we visited Treblinka death camp, and we realised that if the perpetrators were people just like us, then what are we capable of? We asked ourselves how supposedly normal people could commit such crimes. In our opinion, the perpetrators committed those crimes because they stopped seeing their victims as people. And then we asked, do we do this today?
They were no longer people when they arrived here. They were units, cargo, things to be destroyed, vermin, the enemy. We're talking about children, innocent men and women, sick people, old people, being just talked about like rats.
As we looked round the stones, representing the communities that were murdered here, we couldn't help but wonder how we dehumanise people today.
And I think that absolutely we can judge, and that's what we have to start doing. Judging behaviour, not necessarily everyone else's, but your own. What have you said today that could be offensive? Have you dehumanised someone? Are you part of the story? Are you part of this story? Are you part of the story of the Holocaust? The Holocaust being part of the story of prejudice, it's all linked.
As we were leaving Treblinka, we realised that life is just a series of choices, and it became clear that you can choose whether you want to positively contribute to the world around you or not.
We believe that there is a chance for a better world, and for those who say there's not, then shame on you, because you're a part of the problem. We have to hope.
But I would like really to know the young people and everyone what happened, so they won't allow ever to do such things. It is awful. It is not for people.